Welcome to Romance Story Audio. In the midst of this fast-paced world, thank you for taking a moment to slow down and listen. We hope this brings you peace and comfort. Now, here is the story Romance Story Audio brings to you today. Please, enjoy. Music genius Blake Sherman just released a new album, and the title track She Heard It is already taking the world by storm, sweeping up every major music award. He wrote the song back in high school, when we used to sit next to each other in class. When he sang the final line, he reached out and took off my hearing aid, leaving me unable to hear the end. Years later, I finally heard the last lyric of that song, "I like you." Blake's concert had just wrapped up, and within minutes, dozens of trending topics about him flooded every social media platform. As usual, his popularity showed no signs of fading, especially tonight's final performance of She Heard It. This song has swept every music award this year, stirring memories of innocent first love in so many people. I quietly joined a fan group chat dedicated to Blake. The messages kept pouring in, over 99 unread, mostly from people who had just come back from the show. Suddenly, someone mentioned me. "Hey, group admin, why didn't you go to Blake's concert?" I've been a fan of Blake for as many years as he's been in the industry. I even founded this fan group myself. Everyone knows how much I adore him, but I couldn't get a ticket. The resale seller I'd arranged with last minute flaked, even after we agreed on the price. I had no choice but to give up. Maybe it was fate. The conversation in the group soon shifted to a new topic. "I think Blake has a girlfriend now," someone said. She was sitting in the VIP row, wearing a mask, super pretty. After the show, the staff even escorted her backstage. I blinked, confused. When I left the group chat, sure enough, a new trending topic had popped up. Blake Sherman's first love. It was a video. The girl in the mask was seated in the front row, her eyes shining with a stunning beauty. Next to her was an empty seat holding a handbag. She looked up at the man on stage, eyes sparkling. On stage, Blake played the piano, surrounded by brilliant lights. His eyes were cast downward, but every time he looked up, his gaze went straight to her. The lights, the music. It all felt like a dreamlike love story that defied distance and time, unfolding in front of a crowd. Someone in the know claimed the song was written just for her. She was Blake Sherman's first love, the one he never forgot. "They look so perfect together," someone commented. "Romance in the entertainment world really is something to envy." Was I the only one who felt sorry about that beautiful empty chair beside her? Such a nice chair. I turned off my phone. I'm not someone who follows the entertainment world closely, but I've always kept my eyes on one person, Blake Sherman. It's hard to explain what this feeling is. The more he shines, the farther away he seems. The more I try to chase, the greater the distance grows. In the next few days, I plan to hand over the admin rights of Blake's fan group to someone else. It's time for me to move forward too. That night, while writing in my journal, I played Blake's new song again. It's a song I've actually known since high school. Back then, Blake had chosen me to be his deskmate because I was the quietest girl in class. Unlike the others who fawned over him constantly, I never made a fuss. Truth is, I was just quiet. Everyone else laughed at me, calling me the deaf girl or the girl with the hearing aid, but not Blake. I liked him a little, but I kept it hidden so well. He never noticed. Everything about him I remember clearly. One evening in late June of our junior year, Blake helped me up off the ground, gently wiped the blood from my forehead, and sang me this very song, same melody, same lyrics. The scent of summer clung to him. Our shadows overlapped on the pavement, leaning into each other. When he reached the last line, he suddenly took off my hearing aid. The world went silent, but I remember his eyes. He leaned in close, sang softly into my ear, "I like you." So that was the final line. Not long after, the internet exploded with news. People had discovered the identity of the masked girl in the VIP row at Blake Sherman's concert. Her name? Lauren Quinn. A rising singer who got her start on a reality talent show, known for her image as a wealthy heiress who entered the music world for love. pursuing her dream of becoming a songwriter. In a previous interview, she had once said clearly, "I joined the industry because of someone. He's a musical genius." And now, it's obvious who she meant, Blake Sherman. Soon after, her Weibo was flooded with comments. "Welcome to the family, sister-in-law." Strangely, I didn't feel jealous, just a little hollow inside. So, that's the kind of girl Blake likes. I handed over the fan group's admin role to a friend who had been with me all these years. We met at a cafe to say goodbye properly. The background music in the shop? Blake's She Heard It. At the table next to us, a girl excitedly told her friend, "Did you watch that latest interview with Lauren Quinn and Blake Sherman?" "I'm obsessed." My friend showed up a little late. Online, she went by the name Little Bunny. When she saw me, she stopped in her tracks. I smiled, eyes narrowing with a teasing glint. "What? Just because I wear a hearing aid, I'm not allowed to love music?" She waved her hands quickly, laughing. The atmosphere lightened. Right before officially letting go of all these years of dedication, Little Bunny half joked, half serious. "So, how many years have you been following Blake now?" 7, she burst out laughing. "Girl, Blake's only been famous for 4. I looked at my reflection in the glass and gave a small smile. From 17 to 24 years old. That's 7 years. I didn't calculate it wrong. Liking Blake Sherman. In just a blink, it's been 7 years. "Do you regret it?" Little Bunny asked me one last time. I replied, "No, I don't." I opened QQ. Nowadays, everyone uses WeChat. Hardly anyone logs into QQ anymore. But back in high school, we all used QQ. My contact list was almost empty. I scrolled down to my special list. Only one name remained, Blake Sherman. His avatar had always been gray. When we sat together in class, I used homework as an excuse to ask for his QQ. But later on, I think he lost access to his account. His status was never online again. Even though I knew that, I never had the heart to delete him. Every time I missed him, I'd open that chat window and just stare for a while. This time was the same. I opened our chat, thinking I'd finally say goodbye. I typed a message, then deleted it, typed again, and deleted again. In the end, I only managed to send a few simple words. "Your song is beautiful." Even just typing that made my palms sweat. I knew he'd never see it, yet my heart was racing. Suddenly, his avatar blinked twice. From gray to lit, from offline to online, he was typing. Blake Sherman replied with just 2 words, "Thank you." Then another message, "Did you hear it?" I froze. I hadn't expected him to see the message, let alone reply. When my screen dimmed, I finally gathered myself and began to type. I rewrote it a few times. Finally, I sent, "Yes, I heard it. Your song is playing everywhere. Congratulations." The boy who once sat next to me in class had now become a musical legend. I was genuinely happy for him. "Wishing you even greater success." The chat window showed, "Blake is typing." I waited. Finally, I got 2 words. "Good night." I thought to myself, I was never good at conversations. But still, at the end of this 7-year journey of silent admiration, I received a good night. I packed away all of Blake Sherman's posters and albums. My mom helped me sort through them. "You've been holding on for so long," she said gently. "It's time to let go." I nodded. "Yeah." My mom is also a fan of Blake Sherman, but she met him when I was in high school, so she always knew that I wasn't just a fan. She knew I had genuinely cared for Blake, as a person, from beginning to end. She hesitated for a moment, then quietly said, "That girl, she's very pretty." She was talking about Lauren Quinn. This morning, my mom watched a few news clips about Blake Sherman and Lauren Quinn, sneaking glances at me to see if I'd cry. Someone had dug up an old photo of Lauren from high school. Turns out, she went to the same school as us, just a grade below. A junior. Every detail matched the image of Blake's so-called first love. Not a single thing was off. The internet sleuths who live for finding clues were ecstatic. flooding social media with their excitement. I stayed silent for a long while, staring at that high school photo of Lauren Quinn the press had uncovered. It was from an 11th grade talent show. She was the MC, and behind her, seated at the piano, Blake Sherman, lit by stage lights, already shining so brightly. Even I couldn't deny it. They looked perfect together. Once the dating rumors spread, Lanefield High School, the one we all attended, suddenly basked in the spotlight. Both of them had once been students there. And now, Lanefield was celebrating its 100th anniversary. As soon as the school posted about Blake Sherman being one of its most famous alumni, it instantly shot to the trending charts. Invitations were sent out to former students. I was going to attend too. There's not much I remember fondly about Lanefield High. If anything had kept me tied to the past, it was only Blake Sherman. But this time, I wanted to go, because Blake would be there. I had something I needed to return to him. Mom opened a small tin box from the cabinet and carefully took out a passbook, a savings account she'd quietly helped me keep over the years. We didn't make much money. Saving this much was hard, but the amount inside was just about equal to the cost of the hearing aid Blake had once bought for me. The anniversary event would be a perfect chance to return it. No fanfare, no wasted time, just closure. I held the passbook in my hand, heart unsteady. I was going to see Blake again, but I couldn't get in because I hadn't received an official invitation. I pulled out every old student record I had, even called my former homeroom teacher to verify my attendance. My voice went hoarse, explaining, pleading. But the security guard barely looked at me before glancing at the hearing aid in my hand, his expression dismissive. Then his eyes lit up. For a second, I thought he might let me through. But instead, he pushed me aside and turned to welcome someone else. I stumbled. The shutters clicked rapidly all around me. People probably thought I was just another fan chasing celebrities. When I finally stood upright and turned around, I realized they were right. A real star had arrived. Lauren Quinn, surrounded by bodyguards, her sharp gaze hidden behind dark sunglasses. Her face had been all over trending searches for days now. The guard recognized her instantly. No invitation needed. They opened a clear path just for her. I looked down and stepped quietly aside. As she passed by, Lauren Quinn suddenly stopped. I froze and looked up. Her gaze brushed over my ear, pausing at my face. Then she took off her sunglasses. Her sharp, proud eyes were unmistakable. Lauren gave a faint smile and said, "This is Lanefield High, not Clearview School for the Deaf. You sure you're in the right place?" I froze. My face burned with shame. The security guard sneered with a chuckle and patted his chest confidently. "Don't worry, Miss Quinn. Our security is tight. We absolutely won't let any undesirables slip in." Honestly, this wasn't the first time I'd been treated like this. But this time felt especially humiliating. It nearly made my knees buckle. Still, I couldn't say anything back. All I could do was lower my eyes. Just then, behind Lauren Quinn, a sleek matte black car pulled up. The tinted window lowered slowly, revealing a calm, noble face. I never imagined my reunion with Blake Sherman would happen like this. Definitely not while I was standing there. Ashamed, powerless, exposed. I lowered my head in a hurry, but it was too late. "Nina!" Blake called my name, his voice soft. That was the first thing he said. Reporters and fans at a distance had already spotted him. Camera flashes went off like fireworks in broad daylight, as if they were witnessing some grand reunion. "Long time no see, seatmate," he said each word slowly, clearly. That was the second thing he said. Seatmate. When I look back on high school, I rarely think of the cruel nicknames people used to call me. Deaf girl, mute girl. What I remember most is Blake Sherman waking up groggy from a nap, red marks still on his face, and asking me in a hoarse voice, "Hey, seatmate, what time is it?" Blake was loved by everyone, quiet but never cold. Just a casual lean back in his chair, a spin of his pen, and a half smile, and people would flock around him. I was different. I was quiet, alone. Back then, I used the worst kind of hearing aid, one completely unsuited to my condition. I lived in a silent world. At first, people still tried to talk to me, but eventually they gave up. Everyone except Blake. Maybe he was just bored after sitting next to me for so long, but he patiently repeated himself again and again. "Seatmate, hand in your homework. Seatmate, help me out with something. Seatmate, did you hear me? Seatmate." My seatmate, Blake Sherman, was no longer just the boy on my left within reach. He was now standing on stage, tall and poised. When Blake stepped onto the stage as a distinguished alumnus to give his speech, I was still seated in the audience, stunned, still clutching his jacket in my hands. Honestly, I should have reminded him. If you're going to stand in front of the girl you like, maybe don't bring another girl with you. That glance he gave Lauren Quinn just now. Even I felt afraid. The security guards tried to stop me, but only after Blake Sherman called my name did their faces turn pale. Blake stepped out of the car himself, confirmed my alumni status, and escorted me into the school. Now, Lauren Quinn sat right behind me, and for the first time, I truly understood the phrase, "like thorns in your back." I looked up quietly at Blake standing on stage. He hadn't changed much, just a little more composed now. His single-lidded eyes were still the most captivating, especially when he looked down while strumming his guitar. There was still a small beauty mark near his eye. As he delivered the final line of his speech, the auditorium gently applauded. I joined them, savoring the moment, not knowing whether I'd ever get a moment like this again. On stage, Blake Sherman suddenly turned and gave me a small smile. Then came the student Q and A. Blake answered a few lighthearted questions, keeping the room cheerful. One girl, maybe 16 or 17, with a ponytail and a bright smile, stood up and asked, "Blake, is it true what they say online? That you had a high school first love, your white moonlight?" The room held its breath. Blake's expression stayed calm. "Yes," he answered. Every gaze immediately shifted to Lauren Quinn. Oddly, her smile looked a little pale. The girl beamed, barely able to contain her excitement. "Is she here today?" she asked. Blake hesitated for just a moment. The tips of his ears turned pink. Then, in a soft but steady voice, he said, "Yes." The crowd erupted. Cheers and gasps echoed through the auditorium. I placed a hand over my heart. Something inside me felt strange. For just a second, it was as if my heart had caught fire. The Q&A ended, but then someone stood up, uninvited. He wasn't a student. No one had handed him a microphone, but his voice rang out loud and clear. He shouted toward the stage just as Blake was about to step down. "Big shot singer, celebrity Blake Sherman. Do you still remember Victor Wong, the kid you nearly beat crippled in 11th grade? Why does a school bully like you get to live so well?" The room erupted in chaos. Blake raised his eyes to look at him. His gaze filled with cold, unshaken contempt. As if staring down a clown putting on a circus act, security rushed to remove the man. The disruption passed quickly, a brief blip in the ceremony, but I remained frozen. I hadn't heard the name Victor Wong in years. It brought back nothing but nightmares. After the event, I still couldn't find a moment alone with Blake. He was constantly surrounded by fans asking for autographs. In my hands, I still held his jacket. In my bag, the savings passbook. Both felt like they were burning against my skin. I should have returned them sooner. I walked to our old classroom, the one burned into my memory. Now it was abandoned. I looked through the dusty window, and for a moment, it was as if I could see it. That summer long ago, Blake Sherman hunched over sheets of scrap paper, doodling notes with one hand, a cup of iced water by the desktop speaker. I stared, completely absorbed. When I finally turned around, he was there. Blake was leaning against the wall, arms crossed. I had no idea how long he'd been watching. Reflexively, I whispered, "Sorry. I'm sorry." He looked slightly amused. He reached out to take back his jacket. "What are you apologizing for?" he asked. At that moment, the school loudspeakers began playing Blake Sherman's She Heard It. I didn't know exactly why, but I just felt the need to say sorry to him. Maybe it was because I'd caused a bit of a scene during his anniversary celebration. I pressed my lips together, pulled the savings passbook from my bag, and handed it to him. "This is the money you once spent on my medicine and hearing aid. My mom and I have always been grateful to you. I'm returning it now." Blake stood still for a second. I was afraid he might refuse it. But unexpectedly, his hand moved quickly. His fingers brushed gently against mine, and he smiled. A soft, almost imperceptible smile. He rarely showed emotion, so it startled me. "You still remember me? That's nice," he said. Blake's focus was always a little offbeat, but that was just him. As for me, I knew I'd never forget him. Blake didn't want to leave through the main gate, since it was swarmed with reporters and fans. Wearing a baseball cap low over his face, he followed me quietly as I led him out through a side path. The sky had been overcast all day during the ceremony. Now it was getting darker. And, just like the forecast said, it started to rain halfway through our walk. I pulled him into a nearby flower shop. The door chimes jingled in the breeze as we stepped inside. It was my mom's shop, opened a few years ago. She once joked, "I sell flowers in this life, hoping to be beautiful in the next." But all I ever wished for was simply to hear clearly like everyone else. No one was in the store. My mom probably wandered off to chat with a neighbor. Blake made a quick call to his manager, then strolled around the shop, browsing. I turned away to make tea. When I turned back, he was standing with his back to me, intently looking at something. My eyes widened. I nearly dropped the teacup. A few days ago, my mom and I had been cleaning out some old boxes. Inside were signed posters, albums, and photos of Blake Sherman. My mom had likely just set them out today, planning to give them away, but accidentally left them in plain sight. And Blake had seen them. I froze. A wave of shame swept over me, as if all my years of buried feelings had just been exposed. Blake picked up a box of albums. His eyes lowered. This was my first album. I glanced at him carefully, trying to read his face, then forced a polite smile, the kind you give an old friend you haven't seen in years. It was hard to get, honestly. Everyone liked you. The things in that box, I'd collected over many years. Every song you released, every album, I listened to all of them. The last few words caught in my throat. I lowered my eyes, paused, then smiled faintly, my voice dry and a little self-mocking. "Blake, I'm one of your hardcore fans. So many people adore the musical genius Blake Sherman. But I'm not like them. I didn't love the genius. I just loved Blake." Blake Sherman turned back to look at me. The little mole beneath his eye was still clearly visible. He said softly, "It's like you've never been to any of my concerts." Outside, the rain had stopped. The wind chimes on the door rang again. After Blake left, Little Bunny, my longtime friend from the fan group, messaged me, chatting about everything that had been happening among the fans lately. Apparently, the group had started growing cold toward Lauren Quinn. Ever since her popularity skyrocketed alongside Blake's, she had quickly signed endorsement deals with several major brands. Too opportunistic, people were saying. Little Bunny shared more gossip from the group. I listened quietly. Then, suddenly, I sent her a message. "Hey, Bunny. Actually, I was Blake Sherman's seatmate in high school. He even asked me why I've never attended any of his concerts." There was silence on the other side for a moment. Then she replied with a string of LOLs. Probably thought I was joking. I lowered my head and gave a soft smile. Having my name mentioned in the same breath as Blake Sherman's was already surprising enough. I quietly brushed away the stray thought lingering in my heart. Someone had recorded the Q&A segment from the anniversary celebration and posted it online. In the video, a lively, energetic girl asked Blake on stage, "Is it true you had a first love back in high school? Someone you called your white moonlight?" He replied calmly, "Yes." "Is she here today?" she asked again. He paused, just for a beat, then said, "She is." Blake had always been known for his reserved, distant aura. He rarely smiled, almost never showed emotion. But in this video, for the first time, he blushed. One part of the clip even caught Lauren Quinn's reaction. And just like that, the topic of their relationship shot up the trending charts. Then, Lauren made a post on Weibo. "I heard it." A clever play on the title of Blake's hit song, the implication couldn't have been clearer. It was the first time she publicly hinted at their relationship, subtly claiming herself as Blake Sherman's first love. Their fans went wild, some nearly hysterical with joy. But lately, Lauren Quinn had been moving too fast. New roles, brand deals, non-stop exposure. Blake's fanbase felt she was too ambitious. Still, for Blake's sake, they gave her their blessings. This story of quiet, unrequited love could have ended like every perfect fairy tale. Until a surprise interview aired, hastily produced right after the performance. Blake rarely did this kind of personal media appearance, so it drew major attention. The host jokingly asked, "Professor Blake, fans are dying to know your white moonlight? Was she older or younger than you?" Blake lowered his eyes. Then, gently, he shook his head. "Neither. She wasn't. She was my classmate." The host, though clearly surprised, handled it professionally and quickly hid her expression. Online, the public was still buzzing about Lauren Quinn, who, as everyone knew, had been a grade below Blake in high school. But with that answer, Blake Sherman had more or less shut down the rumors. At the end of the interview, the host asked, "The song She Heard It is likely to become the anthem of many people's youth. Mr. Sherman, why did you name it that?" This time, Blake fell silent for a long while. When he finally looked up and stared directly into the camera, he blinked slowly, a flicker of rare vulnerability in his eyes. His gaze seemed to pierce right through the screen. And then he said, "One afternoon, on the red track behind the school, she walked slowly toward me. And I just wanted to know, when she passed by, did she hear the sound of my heart pounding so wildly I couldn't control it? Did she hear the feelings I had buried so deeply inside?" Blake Sherman doesn't have a personal Weibo account, but his studio quickly reposted the full interview. The studio added a caption, "The one who shouldn't have heard it, did." Soon after the interview aired, Lauren Quinn deleted her earlier post, "I heard it." This moment marked the peak of her fame following the concert, a rise built entirely on implication and association. The rumors connecting her to Blake Sherman had always been flimsy, but she'd fueled them both subtly and publicly, with help from her management team. For years, Blake had ignored such things, focusing purely on his music. Plenty of people had tried to ride his name to fame, and most were brushed off or ignored. But this time, people could tell Blake Sherman was serious. Lauren Quinn's popularity plummeted. There's no pride in stealing someone else's affection. Brand after brand began terminating their endorsement deals with her. She was forced to pay significant penalties in the process. She tried to do damage control, posting on Weibo, "Ha ha, just a joke. I mean, everyone can hear, right?" After the public backlash about Lauren Quinn's clout chasing, Little Bunny called me, furious. She ranted on the phone all afternoon, repeating the same angry phrases over and over. She took a sip of tea, then said, "I've got inside info. Lauren Quinn's family has some money, and the company still wants to salvage her. They bought a smear video and are planning to release it soon. Try to shift the public's attention." My eyelid twitched. A wave of unease washed over me. I had a bad feeling. And then, it happened. That very night, the smear video went live. The keywords exploded, rocketing to the top of Weibo's trending list. The tag, "Chat Blake Sherman School Violence." I clicked on the video. The accuser held up his ID and launched into a dramatic monologue, detailing how Blake Sherman had bullied him back in high school. He showed old medical reports, describing injuries. He emphasized a scar on the bridge of his nose. He accused Blake of nearly beating him to the point of disability, only to then calmly leave the country for college abroad like nothing had happened. The name on the ID card was Victor Wong. In recent years, people have become especially sensitive to issues of school bullying, so the public reaction was intense. Even more so because the accused was Blake Sherman, long regarded as the golden boy of the music industry. I watched the video, my whole body trembling. Victor Wong's words were lies, manipulative, misleading stories meant to deceive. But there was one thing he didn't lie about. That scar. Blake Sherman really did cause it. Victor and I had gone to the same schools for years. Every time I entered a new environment, people were kind to me. Even though I was a little different, I smiled politely, quietly observing everyone. But wherever Victor Wong was, my life turned into a nightmare. In elementary school, he used to grab my backpack and drag it along the ground, throw rocks at my head, and incite others to chant "deaf freak" at me. In middle school, he sat behind me. One day, he suddenly reached under my top layer and pulled my undershirt through my uniform, calling the boys over to laugh. He chased me, shouting, "Deaf girl!" And when he realized I didn't make a sound even when I cried, he added, "Mute, girl!" His family had money, so he acted however he wanted, leading others in isolating and humiliating me. Things only started to get better in high school because I met Blake Sherman. I was lucky enough to be quiet enough to be chosen as his seatmate. With Blake by my side, Victor finally held back, at least a little. At the end of our junior year, there was a school talent show. I had gone to return Blake's student name tag, which he'd left in class. He was the closing act that evening. Between the academic building and the gym was a narrow gravel path, dimly lit. That night, Victor Wong blocked my way. He brought a few of his usual cronies, one of them holding a camera, probably thinking this was going to be some kind of romantic moment. He told me he realized he might like me, that he wanted me to be with him. I felt sick. I pretended not to hear, kept my head down, and tried to walk past quickly. But just as I passed him, he shoved me hard. I fell. My head hit the gravel. Warm blood began to trickle. My ears rang. One of my hearing aids flew out. Victor crushed it under his shoe. It was the best one my mom had ever managed to buy for me, after so much sacrifice, so I could try to live like everyone else. His cronies laughed out loud. I recognized one of them. He'd followed Victor since elementary school. He joked, "Hey Vic, it's been a while since you pulled her shirt. Want a throwback?" But this time, Victor didn't go through a top layer. In the distance, the gym lights blazed. The talent show had already begun. I couldn't fight back, like a fish stranded on dry land. Suddenly, a flashlight beam cut through the dark. Victor Wong's gang scattered like rats, startled by the light, scrambling in every direction. The person who approached me, the moonlight filtered through the leaves and lit up his face. It was Blake Sherman. I reached out my hand. In my palm was his student name tag, glinting faintly. His eyes were calm. Blake gently fixed my clothes, helped me to my feet, wiped the blood from my forehead, and walked me home. On the narrow path back, our shadows leaned into one another, closer than ever. But my own shadow trembled. I said, "The talent show's still going. Let me go back on my own. You need to perform." His voice was quiet. "It's okay." That song was never meant for them anyway. I was only wearing one hearing aid, so every sound in the world came from his side. But the aid wasn't very good. The sound would cut in and out. His words were sometimes broken, disjointed. Yet his singing, husky, raw, cut through it all. Beautiful enough to make you cry. I had countless moments next to him when all I wanted to do was break down in tears. In the stillness of the night, he suddenly took off my hearing aid and softly sang the final line into my ear. It wasn't until years later that I found out. The song was called "She Heard It." And the last line? "I like you." After walking me home, Blake returned to school. Those fingers that played the piano with such grace were just as fierce when used to throw a punch. Victor Wong and his cronies never returned to school after that night. Blake, meanwhile, was quietly sent abroad for study by his family. It must have been a private agreement between the two families. After that night, I never saw Blake Sherman again. Before he left, he sent me a gift, a brand new hearing aid. It fit perfectly. The sound was so clear. Along with it came a camera memory card. My final year at Lanefield High felt endless and desperately lonely. Without Victor Wong, I finally made a few new seatmates, but no one ever called me seatmate again. It felt strangely empty. Only at graduation did I realize the most important thing in my youth was already gone. Then one day, I heard Blake's song playing on the street. I wasn't lying when I said this. I really am your most loyal fan. When I listen to your music, I always feel like you're right there with me, like you never left. I never imagined the incident with Victor Wong would come back to light, especially not twisted into something so false. Even though he lied and his accusations were dripping with malice, so many people still believed him. After the school violence accusations surfaced, it became the worst PR crisis Blake Sherman had faced since his debut. Little Bunny, a longtime fan group member, was in total panic, furiously blaming Lauren Quinn and her unethical management company for orchestrating it all. Blake Sherman's scheduled performances were all put on hold. Several major brands terminated their endorsement contracts with him. Since the scandal broke, he had remained completely silent. Not a single word to the public. He could have spoken out, at least to clear up the truth, but doing so would have dragged me into the spotlight. It would have hurt me. Blake called me. On the other end of the line, his breathing was calm and steady. His voice was soft. "Nina, let me handle this. Don't worry." I tilted my head, holding the phone between my shoulder and ear as I rummaged through an old trash bin. Eventually, I found it. A small brown box. Inside was the broken hearing aid I had taken back from one of Victor Wong's goons. I let out a deep breath and gripped the camera memory card tightly in my hand. Blake hadn't hung up. He just waited in silence. I whispered, "I know, but still, I want to help you." Blake Sherman deserves to stand tall at the top of the music world, untainted and shining. I turned on my computer, uploaded the video, and started writing a blog post. I've always been timid, but sometimes you just want to be brave, even just once. The video showed a frail girl being shoved to the ground, red fluid trickling from her forehead. The voice behind the camera was full of vulgar cruelty. Victor Wong's face was clearly visible. Even after 7 years, he hadn't changed much. There was a scene, clear as day, where he grabbed my hair, ripped open my uniform, unhooked my bra strap, and spit on my back. They laughed. Mute girl, deaf freak. I wrote everything, the full story between me and Victor Wong, in chronological order. The way his parents enabled him, the way teachers and school staff turned a blind eye. I believe in karma, that good and evil both get what they deserve. But if it hadn't been for Blake Sherman, who would have stopped Victor Wong? Who would have given me justice? I clicked the yellow post button. Once again, the internet exploded. But this time, in the right direction. Victor Wong was exposed for what he truly was, a malicious liar. His words couldn't hold up against the video evidence. Even alumni from Lanefield High began speaking out, all in defense of Blake Sherman. Eventually, Victor Wong was dragged into the public square of shame. Under one of his posts on Weibo, someone commented, "Why wouldn't my idol beat the hell out of this trash?" He didn't just receive a legal notice from Blake's lawyers. He was also exposed as a serial liar, a manipulator who had faked testimonies before. The case became a matter for the police. It was labeled a model case of moral degeneration that year. Reporters later revealed the real bombshell. The smear video originally used to defame Blake Sherman had actually been purchased by Lauren Quinn's PR team, an intentional distraction to shift public attention. That move utterly shattered her sweet, innocent heiress image. Lauren Quinn was ultimately forced to issue a public apology. Her company couldn't protect her. She not only had to pay penalties for breached contracts, but also quietly withdrew from the entertainment industry. As for me, life didn't change much. Since graduation, I've been teaching at a school for the hearing impaired. My daily life is simple, my relationships even simpler. Unexpectedly, after the scandal, some netizens found my blog and discovered it was filled with posts promoting support for deaf education. Thanks to that, the school received a wave of donations and sponsorships. This month, we recorded the highest number of community contributions ever. One night, Little Bunny called me. She didn't say anything at first, just cried for half an hour. Finally, she wiped her tears and shouted through the phone, "It's all over now, Nina. Just go forward, bravely, on your road lined with flowers." "Seatmate," she said, "please be brave and keep walking that path full of blossoms." I kept teaching my students as usual. They were sweet and quiet, never caused trouble. One afternoon, while a Blake Sherman music video played in class, a completely deaf little girl ran up and signed to me, "Miss, is his song beautiful?" I nodded. Her face lit up in wonder. Then she pointed behind me in awe. "Why is he here?" I turned. Through the glass window, I saw someone standing there, head tilted slightly. Just like that, it felt like we were 17 again. Blake Sherman tapped gently on the windowpane, his single-lidded eyes lowered, looking straight at me. The entire class turned to stare at him, then turned back to look at me. For once, the usually quiet classroom burst into noise. It had been ages since I blushed like that. Kids these days, why do they understand so much so fast? Blake had come as part of a charitable initiative, planning to shoot his next music video at the school for the hearing impaired. The principal assigned me to be his point of contact, but my hearing had worsened lately. My head buzzed with a constant dull ache. Even with my hearing aid, I could barely understand anyone. I suspected Blake had noticed something was wrong, but he said nothing. He just patiently repeated himself for me, over and over. I had planned to wait until he finished the school project before starting a new treatment regimen, but I never made it that far. One afternoon, I couldn't hear anything at all. The world suddenly fell into complete silence. Before my surgery, Blake stayed by my side the entire time. Only after I finally spoke up did people begin to understand why that song title, "She Heard It," meant everything to Blake Sherman. This time, even his fans admired him sincerely. Blake finally created a personal Weibo account and publicly addressed all the rumors online. He wrote, "Yes, I secretly loved her for 7 years." I later found 2 envelopes tucked inside a pile of old newspapers. One was an invitation to the Lanefield High anniversary, and the other was a concert ticket to Blake's show, sent long ago. But I wasn't afraid anymore. Even if I never hear again, I'm not afraid. Because once, in a June summer, I was the only audience to Blake Sherman's performance. And 7 years later, I heard She Heard It echo through every street in town. At last, I truly heard it. Thank you for listening to Romance Story Audio. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next chapter.